Welcome back. Now, I'm sure you can agree that we've just had a fantastic, fun, inspiring start to the Changing Lawyer Virtual Summit. Don't forget to use hashtag TCL Virtual Summit to stay social with us. And now let's continue all of that goodness, but also change gears a bit and get into the first of our sessions this morning. Our panel, made up of knowledge management, data analysts, and experts, will explore the advantages of breaking down data silos, combining information from disparate systems like CRM, time and billing, HR, conflicts, and external sources to drive data-driven decision making. Lots of useful information to come, I'm sure. So let's learn together.
All right, welcome everyone. Hi, I'm Cindy Thurston Bear. I'm a senior director at Litera, and I have been fortunate to work with almost half of the AmLaw 100 to help them understand and leverage their firm intelligence. I joined Foundation 4 years ago, and prior to that, I spent 20 years inside global law firms, most recently as the director of knowledge management at Oric. And I was really pleased to hear Seth validate my opinion this morning that there's almost nothing changing lawyers more today than data. And that's what we'll talk about today during this session. So I'm really excited to have two people with me today who are leaders in our industry and personally whom I admire greatly to join me for this conversation. So Tanisha Little and Andrew Baker, both with Simpson Thacher. Tanisha, can you start the introductions and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Cindy. It's great to be here with you today. Hi, everyone. I'm Tanisha Little. I'm the Director of Knowledge Management at Simpson, Thacher, and Bartlett. I've been with the firm just over a year now, so it's been an exciting ride this past year. I've been in knowledge management, though, for, over 15 years now. Started as a capital markets lawyer before moving into KM as a knowledge management lawyer. Over the years, I've worked on so many projects. I've done, SharePoint intranets. I've done enterprise search. I've done practice intelligence tools, some internal and client-facing custom applications along the way. Just by way of background, I went to NYU for law school. Like I said, I started as a capital markets associate. Spent my first summer at Stricken Levan writing Y2K risk factors. So yeah, dating myself a little bit there. But it's interesting because I worked at firms at a time when when to find precedents as an attorney, we went to the bound volumes, right? We would walk into a partner's office and we would say, hey, do you remember that deal where we did XYZ thing? And they'd look at their shelf and point to a book and and you would borrow it like it was a lending library. And that was how we collected data when I started. And you better not lose that book, because if somebody else needed that, down the line, you had to turn that over. But once I decided, after a while, that practicing law just wasn't for me, and and I started dabbling. I was trying to find ways to help the practice group just be more efficient. I figured there's got to be a better way to do some of these things. And the more I started dabbling, the more I became interested in knowledge management. Although I did not have a name for it at the time, I just figured these were the things that needed to get done to help the practice group. And by this time I was at Morrison and Foerster, and that's where I met Ozban Amran. He was leading the knowledge management efforts there at MoFo, and he convinced me to join his team, and that was kind of my first stop into knowledge management. And our careers took us in different directions for a while. He went to White and Case, I went to Ropes and Gray, and now we're back together at Simpson, where Oz is our Chief Knowledge and Information Officer, and now I lead the CAM team here at Simpson. So I have a team of knowledge management lawyers. So they're, knowledge lawyers. They're embedded in our practice groups, highly experienced advisors to our practice groups. I also have our knowledge resources team. This is the group that supports a lot of the content, our knowledge bank and systems. They work really closely with the knowledge management lawyers and our practice groups to support their needs. And I also have the intranet team that's supporting our firm-wide intranet. So that's me in a nutshell.
Great. Thank you so much, Tanisha. Fascinating career. Andrew, you've done some interesting things in your time as well. Tell us about it.
I have. I'm getting along in the tooth. I guess you stay around long enough, you do some interesting things. But I director of data analytics at the firm. I think Tanisha has about 2 months on me, so I'm not quite a year into the job, but coming up on that. Before coming into the firm, I consulted for about a 5-year period. Lastly, at HBR Consulting, where I co-led our innovation and data team. But going back even before, I graduated law school almost 15 years ago now. Just scary to say, but true. When I was in law school, I worked on what at the time was a fairly progressive project to try to make document automation more accessible to the masses. So it was really kind of a cartoon front end that sat over hot docs. It was designed to be delivered by court systems to low-income litigants primarily. And in doing that in law school, I kind of, I guess, drank the Kool-Aid at that point. And it wasn't really the practice of law that was as exciting to me. It was really more trying to find ways to enhance how legal services were delivered, and to think about that in a very different way. Much to my now wife's chagrin and my parents, I let them know that I wasn't going to be a traditional lawyer after all, that this is where where my passion was. And I had a technical background from undergrad, so it all kind of fit together. But I kind of went the legal tech route straight on. As Tanisha mentioned, there weren't names for a lot of these things at the time, so lots of hand gesture and interpretive dance to try to convey what you thought was missing and how things should fit together. And it was just a very, very different time. But spent a number of years in knowledge management, both at Cypher Shaw and Reed Smith, doing some very, at the time, progressive things that were quite novel and interesting. And then led the innovation program at Cypher for about a 3.5-year period. Then before going into consulting, probably at the tail of my time at Cypher, I got deeper and deeper into the data side of things. We started off doing some things that were very progressive, just trying to visualize data and make what we had on hand more engaging and thoughtful. Read every book I could find. Nothing in industry was really relevant to what we were doing, and so spent a lot of time exploring and learning. And then once we had tried to visualize things differently, we then started dusting off our statistics books from undergrad and relearning ways to get new insights from the data that was on hand. And all that led to me knowing that was the space I really wanted to commit to. So having ventured in a lot of different areas, it was the one that appealed to me in the most material way. And just as I looked out on the horizon of where the industry is going, just knew that all paths led down a data road to one extent or another. And so I went back to school and finished up my master's actually in August of this year in analytics. I took one class a quarter for what felt like an eon. It was a long time. Lots of nights, early mornings, weekends spent hunkered down working on code. Very different than law school. In law school, depending what class you're in, you can kind of take your foot off the gas for a period of time and catch back up toward the close of the course. For all of these, assignments due at a pretty regular basis. Everything fairly technical, and it was a lot of learning on a lot of fronts, and great, good to have behind me, but a wonderful experience. But all that kind of came together, and here I am at Simpson Thacher, helping to lead a data group that's really focused on pushing the envelope for our lawyers and for our clients. We have kind of a mixed team. So myself, we've got a manager of data science, a data architect, and a head of enterprise search. And think of that as much more broad than just enterprise search. It's really information retrieval. But the team is growing and expanding, and we're excited about what lays ahead.
Yes. Well, thank you both for those detailed introductions. And I think hopefully the audience can see that we have a great panel here today. So you both have the benefit of years of experience in the legal industry across multiple firms and different situations. So how have you seen the need for data change over the years?
Tanisha, you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, I'll kick off. I think, one of the biggest drivers that we've seen, really, it's coming from, from our clients, right? They just have an increased need for data, and they're asking us some really deep questions about the work that we're doing for them. It's not like in the past, when I was talking earlier about my experience of, walking into a partner's office and being able to pull a bound volume off of the shelf and, look up a question, that a client had. And I think the types of things that they're asking us have just changed so much over the years that you can't just, look at one data point to answer a question that they have for you. And we also can't afford to have associates spending half a day, going through old documents and volumes and polling the group about, does anybody remember the last time we did something like this? So I think the speed at which, clients are coming to us, the complexity, the depth of the questions that they're asking for us has really started to change things.
Yeah, for sure. I think that the speed and the responsiveness has certainly changed over the years. Andrew, other thoughts about that?
I was talking to a partner not long ago, and she was saying, look, we have more deals happening. There's more complexity, and we're getting more, questions from our clients. And no matter, how much gray matter you have, it's just impossible to keep all of that, in memory at one time. And then you only know what you've touched and you've experienced directly. So, there's a need to understand things in a much more quantified sense than ever before. And, the insights that come from that are much more apparent than, probably in years past. So, our lawyers' expectations are changing, and the client expectations are changing. And, all of that's kind of creating a very clear need to, collect more and then, squeeze more out of the data that we've got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we just want to continue driving that excellent client service, right? That that we're known for, and to be able to, I think, to do that just requires that we start to think differently about the data we're collecting, how we're organizing it, how we're presenting it, and making it accessible to people so that they can deliver to our clients.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think for the longest time, when we thought about data in the industry, really we only thought about financial data. It's how many different ways can you carve up, our billing and collection information, and that has changed significantly, where we have a very different dimension kind of added to the mix now that I don't think in the industry was quite as prominent, and that is around practice specific data. So for any of our core practices, we're collecting more and more data about the nature of the services we're providing, and we're coupling that with financial data, but also with people data, with marketing data, with intake data in new and creative ways. But it's the fact that we're looking well beyond finance, I think, has changed in my time for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm seeing that across firms as well. I think that's absolutely true. The other thing that I would say, I mean, certainly the pandemic probably helped, speed some of this up, because you could no longer just go next door and ask someone a question, right? That was already true for global firms where so much knowledge was local, and you might not understand what your colleagues across the pond were doing as well. But I would think the pandemic certainly, sort of accelerated some of those needs. And the other thing that I've seen, have you seen that, Tanisha?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, time zones are a thing of the past now, right? With the way that we're working, and, people are working all hours. Our clients are spread across the globe. And like I said earlier, you can't wait for someone to wake up to be able to deliver an answer and to find information.
Right. Absolutely. The other thing I would say that I've seen across multiple firms is diversity starting to become a driver for additional data needs. I think firms are starting to really look at equity and talent development, assignments. Retention is obviously a hot topic. And so I've certainly seen diversity, in the last couple of years become a new data need as well.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think every firm trying to take steps forward, and ours, aggressively trying to do so. And some of these other areas, now, in order to provide the insights or to look at the problem in the right way, you're not just looking at data from one particular department. You actually need to look at data elements from across multiple different lanes in order to fully answer the question or explore things in detail. And I think that's quite a bit different, too, when we think about how data has evolved. In the past, it might have been a financial question, it was a marketing question, it might have been a people or talent question, but it was rare that you were actually combining that in an extremely material way outside of client names, people names, et cetera. Now, really is trying to merge data across multiple different systems in a much more fluid way than in the past that creates both challenges and a lot of benefit if you can do it right.
A lot of
Yeah.
opportunity.
I think one of the things you're probably seeing, I mean, one of the reasons why we're growing data teams, right, is because, the data that we're interested in, whether it's, for diversity purposes, administrative purposes, even practice group purposes, right, it's not just, I just need to know what happened, in the last 5 years. Like, yeah, that's interesting, but it's like we want actionable data, right? We want things that we can actually use. I think, Andrew, I've heard you say, it's no longer, data's not a shield anymore, it's a sword that we're starting to, to use in our firms and in our practices. And I think that's just an important thing to note as well.
Right. Yeah. Definitely evolving from descriptive, right, to more predictive, somewhere along that curve. Yeah. So in order to do that, right, in order to use data as a sword, and really talking about, Andrew, you talked about combining this data from all over the firm. Really, Simpson Thacher has completely transformed its KM team in the last year. So tell us a little bit about that team and how have roles changed to reflect the importance of data?
Sure, maybe so let me just give you kind of like a quick overview of kind of like what we've done with the knowledge department, and then Andrew and I can kind of talk about what we're doing with our teams, because I think we've developed just very I think a special partnership between our teams, between knowledge management team that I'm leading and the data analytics team that that Andrew is leading, and we're like thick as thieves now. But so the new knowledge department at Simpson, it really started I think like a couple of years ago at one of our firm partners retreat, and two of our partners, Linton Mann and Ben Shea, they're the co-chairs of our Knowledge, Innovation, and Technology Committee. They made a presentation to the partners about the growth, the rapid growth of technology in the legal practice, and how it was starting to change and disrupt in a positive way the industry. And they encouraged, and the firm accepted, this challenge to really embrace this change and become proactive about it. So they decided that, that to kind of get the firm to where they wanted it to be, that they needed to make some significant investments in knowledge and innovation and in data. So enter the new knowledge department. So our team, we have some of the functions that are, part of the traditional law firm that you would expect, your research team, your managing clerk's office who's handling, our litigation filings and support. Our practice technology group morphed. They were largely focused on e-discovery and expanded to start to cover other types of technology as well. We expanded knowledge management, which kind of sits in the middle. I think there certainly have been firms that have been investing in knowledge management and knowledge management lawyers, and we made a big push there. But then on the newer side, right, there's the innovation team and Andrew's team on the data analytics side. So that's kind of the core groups that are now part of the knowledge umbrella.
And as part of that, Tanisha, the firm really has been investing in KM lawyers, or practice support lawyers, as they may be called across the globe.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, we really are. It's it's really interesting. I started out as a knowledge management lawyer many years ago, and I remember, I'll date myself, I started around 2006, and I remember my good friend Debbie Ting and I, we were both new knowledge management lawyers in the New York area, and we decided we need to get some peers together, and we created the New York PSL KM group, and we were really, really tiny at the time. And then the recession hit, and a lot of firms started letting their knowledge management programs go around 2008. But then now it's back again. There's been a resurgence, and I think the last time I went to one of our group meetings, there were like over 50 people that were participating. So we're really starting to see the growth, I think, again, of knowledge management lawyers. But I think, for us, even within that space, the role of the knowledge management lawyer is starting to evolve. It's, when I started, it was really, we need someone to just work with the practice and help them gather the precedents and, make sure things are going into the databases correctly. And I think the role has really started to evolve, where we're really looking at our knowledge management lawyers to be trusted advisors to the practice. I mean, they have extensive experience, and we are fortunate enough that they've decided to use their skills and their talents for the benefit of the lawyers inside of the firm, instead of turning outward and and using those skills for for the billable work. But so I think the role has just really evolved over the years. And I think the skills that we're starting to see in our knowledge management lawyers has changed as well. So they are, the data literacy of our knowledge management lawyers, incredibly high. So they're really able to work closely with Andrew and his team, to develop some of the solutions that we're trying to implement.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say on the data side, I mean, half of our projects I would call horizontal, or kind of firm you know, broad firm initiatives rather than kind of targeted, narrow, you know, focus efforts. For the things that are, you know, much more targeted and focused, you know, many of those are aimed toward a particular practice group or even a narrow lane within a practice group. So, you know, we have a lot of things where it's not just you need data expertise or, you know, some kind of architectural experience in order to make it work. You actually need to know that lane pretty well. And what's been great is that, you know, our team gets to pair with, you know, Tanisha's, you know, wonderful and talented team to, you know, really home in on, you know, what's the crux of the issue, what would move things forward. And really what comes out the other end is kind of this mix of, you know, multidisciplinary thinking and you know, a solution that is pretty, you know, thoughtfully created and you know, and they've been quite, you know, received very well and you know, we've been pretty successful at that. Now, as mentioned, less than a year of, you know, kind of collaboration and expertise and, you know, kind of moving in this direction. But, you know, what we've been able to do in the last, you know, 6 months in particular has been pretty phenomenal. And we're excited about where it goes. But it really is kind of this interesting overlap between, you know, subject matter expertise, technical skills, you know, legal, you know, business and domain expertise to, you know, try to create things that move the needle. And I think, you know, kudos to the firm for, you know, kind of seeing the playing space in the way it has and assembling all the different units that come together. And obviously, you know, we're telling the story between, you know, my team and Tanisha's team primarily, but the same thing exists for all the different subgroups of our innovation department and how they collaborate and work on things that, you know, drive value for the firm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really a great investment in terms of, you know, especially in data and then helping serve your clients. So our title today talks about a single source of truth. And, you know, I think we all have to be willing to disrupt ourselves. So from your perspectives, what does that even mean? And is that even the right goal, right? Maybe it's not.
Well, it's interesting. Before this, Tanisha and I traded notes on what does that mean? Because I think actually coming into even that title, you know, both Tanisha and I would look at it, you know, through slightly different ends of the telescope. And actually maybe worthwhile, Tanisha, for you to kind of describe, you know, when you think about single source and, you know, what that means for, you know, not your team, but your team as a proxy for our lawyer population. Like what does that signal? And then I'll come with my take, which is a little bit different.
Sure. And you'll see why it's such a wonderful pairing between the two of us. Because I think, you know, when the perspective that I come at it from and in my team is that, you know, all our lawyers, they want one place to go to get an answer to a question. And I should say that doesn't mean that they need, you know, one massive system that can answer any possible thing. But they need to know when my client comes to me with a question about this, about a particular matter that we've worked on, there's one place for me to go and I can pull all of the information together, all the different data elements that I need to be able to answer that question. And it may be that I need another system to, you know, to answer like detailed financial questions, and that's okay. It's right. You know, we don't need a Franken monster system that does everything for us. But what they're really thinking is, you know, they don't want to have to go to the document management system to figure out where the documents are, and then go to the client matter lookup system to, you know, to do a search for matters, and then go to the search system to actually put in a different set of parameters to figure out all of the pieces that they need. They want to bring all of that into a single solution so that they can find those answers very quickly at their fingertips.
I think on the data side, you know, when you hear single source of truth, you know, everyone's thinking, you know, data warehouse, you know, maybe lake or lake house, depending on how you're looking at it. But it was interesting as Tanisha and I were trading initial notes that, you know, she took that immediately as, you know, from the lawyer standpoint. I probably took it a little bit more from the technical side. And, you know, to echo what she had said, I think that's, you know, really the complementary nature of, you know, our teams and you know, kind of skill sets coming together. But, you know, it is, you know, data management in law firms. So I say this not about Simpson Thacher, but having been a consultant and worked with a fair number of law firms in the past, data management, you know, when you look at our industry, it's well behind other industries. So as we're thinking about cataloging all of our data, you know, looking at metadata management, tracking lineage, you know, those are things that we don't do systematically all that well. And so I think the way people have looked at it is that, you know, a single warehouse would solve for all the issues, and that definitely helps. But it's really, you know, these data management, data governance layers above that are so important, because reducing things down into like truly a single source matters and helps, and you continue to want to skinny that down. But what's really more important are those orchestrational layers above any of your individual core source systems. And so, we probably all need to look at it a bit more through the lens of, the lawyer on, as in, I need a clear single place to go to get the majority of my question answered. And that's how it should be looked at. Now, other being said, I mean, we've been very thoughtful as a firm on how we've built out, a data warehouse for all of our financial data. And we've got, another subset that's, operational in nature for other systems, and they're well done, but we're going to take some steps forward and, modernize and enhance some of that in the coming year plus, depending on what part of the project you're looking at. So lots of work to try to make sure that background environment is as efficient as it can be, because we just have new needs. And it's not just moving data across one system to the next to make sure that the people names are correct and all of the background data is where it needs to be in each individual system. It's now we need to ready data for reporting. We need to do more advanced analysis where we're leveraging ML and stats in a heavy way, and natural language processing on some other fronts, and all that requires data kind of structured and prepped in a different manner. And those are things we're trying to make sure that we can enhance just so we can scale better. It's not that we can't do it now. It's just some of those things are a little bit harder than what we'd like it to be. But we definitely want to get to a single source of truth as much as we can, both from both ends of the telescope, from the technical side and from the consumer side.
Yeah,
I always like the analogy, was it that you used? It's like the highway system into a city that we were talking about, right? There's multiple ways to get there, but I want you to give me the ways. I want you to give me the Waze app for data. Tell me what's the best possible way for me to get to the data and to get to the answer, really that I ultimately need.
Yeah, I think, right data, right place, right time, right? That's kind of what we're all looking for, bringing data together. I think the important point is that data used to be so siloed, right? Critical data would live in these multiple departments, but they really wouldn't cross paths all that much, or there was a ton of redundancy in what marketing was capturing about clients and what a financial system was capturing about clients. How have you seen that change, right? Are firms eliminating these silos? Are they investing? Honestly, this isn't really just about technology. It's about process, right? Following the process of data, of a piece of data within the firm. How are you seeing that change?
I think we have to make investments both in those individual departments to make sure that the source systems that they manage and oversee are as complete and coherent and comprehensive as they can be. But what's happening now is that all leaders then need to look horizontally and figure out how do we move things across lines in a better way. I don't think in the past that was as important. I think the questions that came from leadership largely could be answered in one system or another, so you didn't necessarily need to do that. But I think everyone's much more aware, not just in our firm, but in other firms, that we now need to look horizontally and create connective tissue in a more formal manner. One of the things that I look at as being our responsibility is to try to help bring some of that along. It's difficult, I think, for any functional leader in a law firm to lower their guard and to share completely and openly, and they probably shouldn't. It takes trust and buy-in and understanding to get people to be able to kind of open the curtain a little bit, let people in. And one of the things that we try to do is show that we operate with purpose and care, and are very thoughtful about how data would be used. And I think that helps kind of bring some of these systems a little bit closer, and some of the departments a little bit closer as well. You need people that have the right technical fluency that can operate and kind of move things across and draw out the right elements from one system to the next. But you also need someone that can talk shop across lanes. It can't just be a technical player. And I think our lateral awareness within a law firm helps from what our teams put together, and we're able to kind of pull that those what historically in law firms can be very separate, clear lanes, blur things a bit more and make it better. But every department naturally has its own system, and they are responsible for making sure that data is current and accurate. And we need to figure out then how do you matrix that in the right way. And I think at our firm, we've taken really big steps forward in the last year do that, and excited about what's to come there.
Right. Yeah, I have to say I've worked with a lot of firms on these types of questions, and really when firms understand that the different vertical systems can still own the data, right? That they might be considered the data, the source of the data, and own it. They don't mind bringing it together when there's a purpose and when there's security and when they understand that they're still sort of the owners of the data, right? We're not taking away ownership. We're just trying to combine it in new ways and get new insights from that data.
Talking openly about controls, what limitations
Right.
should there be, and making sure there's the right recognition that, look, anything that you have in a law firm runs a spectrum of like, holy smoke, sensitive and sensitive. Like that's your range. There's not a lot that falls outside of that. And so, it's coming into it eyes wide open and being, really thoughtful about, how you convey that, you understand the sensitive nature of that data, that you'll take care of it in a way that is basically just an annex or an extension of their own department. And, that's something that we try really hard to make clear as we're working with groups. I mean, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to, come in and, have commands from the top. You're going to give us all your data, hands up, kind of thing. It's not going to work. So for us, we have to be, as much a partner and extension of their team as we can. And, that building trust takes time, and, it shouldn't be given freely. And, we have to earn that. But I think we're continuing to do that. And I think there's a recognition within the firm on how we fit and how we can be helpful in a variety of fronts. I think our challenge is going to be one of scale, I think our skill set and perspective becomes much more clear. I think people want more and more from us, which is good. I mean, it's a problem we want to create.
Good problem to have, right?
It's definitely, where we're at. We've got a lot of very willing collaborators right now. Put it that way.
Yeah. One firm described it as what one of us knows, all of us know. And, I just love that description of it because, I think for a long time in law firms, we've had marketing go and ask a partner a question, and then pricing, and then KM, and they're all asking about the same matter. They're essentially asking about the same questions. There might be slightly nuance to it, but, ask once, capture it. Let's have a place where we can all find that information, and really, it serves our clients more effectively, but it also makes us more efficient as firms. So.
Well, speaking of right, which goes to the point that you made earlier, right? It's not just about the technology, right? It's about those processes as well, and it's about the people. And that means, like Andrew said, you have to have the relationships that we're building across, across the organization, and we have to have the right processes in place to say, okay, I know we all need this data, so let's agree on what those pieces are. Let's agree on, who needs to collect them, at what point we need to do it. What the source system is going to be, and how we're going to manage it over time. That's always a part of these projects as well. You can't just throw the technology out there, but the people in the processes are so critical to the work that we're doing too.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
It's so great that Foundation as a platform has come into the market, because in a lot of ways in the past, you didn't have a way to harmonize all of that data. You had this kind of, I think we've talked in terms internally as like this archipelago, of things that are loosely connected and a part of the same island chain, but they're really a little bit different. We haven't had a way to bring that all together into a single mass, and, Foundation for certain classes of data that we're looking to collect, really can be a home for a lot, in a way that we can begin to harmonize, what data elements, we're collecting, when we collect them, and then what can and should we do with that going forward. And so, as we think about where our practice data lives, I mean, that is, the central home, for us on, in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So how do you think all of this, right? The hot topic over the past couple of weeks, I've been to some conferences, I'm reading the legal news. It seems like it's all about war for talent. How do you think firm intelligence and data and all of this that we've been talking about, how can this impact lawyer retention and happiness, right? Not just that lawyers stay, but that they're happy and that fulfilled in work.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And do you want me to start with that one?
Either. Whatever.
I'll go. I think practice intelligence and data is so critical to transforming the way that lawyers are working today. that we have a real opportunity right now to, I think, as you know, I'm going to steal Andrew's words, right? What do you call it? To create a better platform to be a lawyer is really what we're trying to do. We're trying to come up with, with tools, with solutions, with processes that we can put in place that are just eliminating the drudgery that associates have to go through on a day-to-day basis. Those things that just, that take hours of time, but could be automated, or done by a lower cost resource. How can we start to use the data and the things that we know about the work that we're doing to implement some of those things? So we have our lawyers working at the highest level instead of getting trapped in some of that lower level work that just doesn't feed the soul, so to speak, and that that other firms are just pouncing on. So I said, I mean, the war for talent is real, and I think, Cindy, we were talking the other day. At some point, you cannot pay them enough money to keep working like this. We have to do something else.
Yeah,
I think that's right. I mean, part of our objective is, in the long run, how do we ensure that we're the best platform to do high level work? I mean, we do incredibly complex deals and very challenging litigation, and the people that are involved in that, it takes a special individual, intellectually and from an expertise standpoint to be able to navigate that world. How do we make that as seamless for them as possible? Let them work at their highest and best level. To Tanisha's point, take away some of the things that create friction or feel perhaps from a different era almost from a technology standpoint when you're navigating your day. I mean, I know in some firms you've got the 2021 world you live in, and then you go into the office and it's 1997. Like we want to make sure that that's never the feeling at our firm. We need to continue to raise the bar to make things contemporary and feel congruent with the rest of the world and how it's changing. We need to be very thoughtful and purposeful in how we do that, because our firm is unique in its own ways, and the way technology and data support it need to map to those nuances and differences, and but we think if you nail this in the right way, does it make it easier to be a lawyer and do high level work here than elsewhere? Yeah, and that's that's definitely our goal.
Yeah. So make it more rewarding. It's like, I think, for years we thought, associate turn, it was part of the industry, right? It was part of the practice. And it was something I think that, we all accepted. We, had our retention programs and we all worked really hard to keep our associates. But, it was also a little bit easier, years ago to bring on and to hire new people. And that's just not the case anymore. So, we have to do a better job with retention. And I think, we're making Simpson just an incredibly rewarding place to work. It's a really exciting time to be part of the firm right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Because of those, in large part because of the investments that they've made in this kind of technology and in this kind of thinking, right? In this innovation. So there's lots of interest in what's coming next, right? We've talked a lot about the state of data today, but there's lots of interest in artificial intelligence. Based on your experience, what do you think we should expect next?
In artificial intelligence, or generally?
Yeah, artificial intelligence. What's going to happen next in terms of what's going to be important in data?
I can tell you what I want, and Andrew can give the technical perspective and tell me if it's actually possible. I think, just from a campus, like one of the things that I hear, when I talk with my colleagues across the board is that, we're all looking at vast volumes of documents and we're trying to extract data from it. And it's incredibly challenging and painful to have lawyers spend time trying to pull that information. We just don't have enough bodies to do that. And I think we're all, anxiously awaiting for the next tool that can really get in there, like, and do surgical work. It's like, I don't want a whole paragraph. I want a very specific point within that paragraph. And we want AI to be able to do that for us.
Got that up your sleeve, Andrew?
Well, there are a lot of advancements in there. But before I come to that, I think, first, we have to pull a couple things out of the AI bag. So if you think about some things that used to be a part of AI, search, we used to think of search as being a part of AI. We don't really anymore, but mechanically there are a lot of elements that relate to things that we associate with AI now. Chatbots, in some ways we kind of put that into a box, into a corner in a different way, and they're not always lumped into to AI. We've got facial recognition, in other industries that used to be AI and now something a little bit different. we need natural language processing to be kind of pulled out of the AI umbrella and turned into a thing that's much more concrete and specific. So under the natural language processing umbrella, you've got a variety of different tasks, and those tasks might be entity extraction or document segmentation. How do you home in on a given clause, or text summarization? So whether you're extracting particular elements of text to come up with a summary, or using some abstractive technique to come up with a summary. There are different kind of subclasses of natural language processing. Each of those have taken a massive step forward in the last 2.5 to 3 years. The state of play has changed tremendously, and basically none of those advancements have really rippled into our domain quite yet. And so the kinds of things that Tanisha is talking about, of going in and deconstructing documents and pulling things out, that's much more doable than ever. And the performance you can get out of that is much better than it ever has been before. And not by a subtle gain year over year, but a big step forward coming from kind of this transformer revolution. You might have heard of BERT or things of that class have really changed that. And what I'm excited about, and what we're gonna be continuing to work on the Simpson side, is bringing that into our world. We have very complex documents, everything we deal with, and we're talking about some very difficult instruments that are trying to accomplish very sophisticated business goals, and pulling out the individual element that you need is not easy. And so one of the things we're going to be focusing on, is that, and there are challenges behind trying to make that a reality, but it's much more doable than ever has been. And some off-the-shelf tools can be an enabler and a help, but in many cases, you're talking about leveraging a variety of different algorithms and approaches that are out there, in ways that are tailored to your organization, and that's where we'll be focused.
Yeah, I would say, here at Litera, obviously we've invested in lots of new tools and technologies and algorithms, and I think also really thinking about what we can learn about our talent as a law firm is something that we're interested in as well. I think we'll see lots of exciting progress in those areas.
We're doing a number of things in that space that are pretty cool. I think there's a whole lot of room to get creative on the talent side from an analytics standpoint.
Definitely. So what's your strategic focus for 2022? We have, I think, about 2 more minutes. So what interesting projects will you be pursuing? I know I'm fascinated to see what happens at Simpson next.
Sure. I think on the knowledge side, just a couple of things working on, new intranet, building that out, working with Andrew's team to see how we can use data to really push content and information to our lawyers on a more timely basis, instead of people having to search for things and look for things, really pushing them to them at the moment of need. It's something that we're going to be looking at. New knowledge bank repositories, making it even easier to be able to get to the precedents and the documents that you need. Again, a very data-driven process, like we talked about earlier. It's not just a matter of let's just pull all the documents together in a collection. I really want to be able to search and slice and dice that information, using all of the different data points that we're starting to collect within our practice intelligence systems. So those are a couple of the big things that we have going on the KM side.
We've got big architectural goals, and we've got some reshuffling that will be exciting and hard. Lots of big, audacious natural language processing goals, which I kind of hinted to a little bit, that we'll be tackling. We have a number of practice-specific solutions that we've rolled out this year. Our intent is to make sure that we continue to extend and expand in that regard, and kind of raise the watermark for each individual practice on what we're able to do there. And there's some exciting things on that front. And then as it relates to search, we launched a new search platform this year, and it's been very well received, and uptake has been good. Lots of really creative ideas on where we can go next with that, to make sure that we're leveraging our internal content in as effective and as a rich way as we can.
Well, I just want to thank you both. I'm excited to hear about those projects, but I really want to thank you both for joining us today at the Changing Lawyer Live. I really can't think of two better people to talk about, the way that lawyers and law firms and data are changing. So thank you both again, and really appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Cindy. It's great being here with you all.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.